Hi guys, hello everyone. Basically, I'm just gonna turn this up a bit. Actually, quite enjoyed the video I made yesterday. I've got like literally 0 views on it, I guess, because it's obviously so long and probably it'd take a while to grow an audience through this way. But it's a bit simpler, it's a bit easier. I get to riff off a bit. I get to do more not research behind it, but I get to be more me about it, and that really worked for me. So I'm going to go again. So today we're gonna be talking about wealth taxes from GB News. We're going to be on one today. Me and Bev Turner are going to be fucking rowing on this one, I think. Oh, I don't think I should have sworn there, but who cares? I'm not monetized anyway. Here we go. Oh, I've got Tax Justice UK's debunking 5 common myths about wealth taxes up as well, just in case I forget anything. But yeah, so here we go. See what they've got to say.
You don't want to use the estimated figure, that's fine, but you cannot deny that many millionaires have left the UK.
They're rowing.
Now, number 10 and the Treasury have refused to rule out the introduction of a wealth tax, despite Rachel Reeves rejecting this emphatically when she's in opposition. I think she's ruled it out since she's been Chancellor.
So
what does that mean?
Yeah, what is a
Pepsi
wealth
Max.
tax? What is it? What the country needs? Will it just create more problems? Let's talk to
Would it
Professor
just
of
create more
Economic and Public
problems?
Policy Jonathan Portes and Head of Media at the Institute of Economic Affairs, Reem Ibrahim. Great to see you both this morning. So, Jonathan, let's start with you. Do we need a wealth tax, and what
Big up, Jonathan.
level do you think that should be?
On a serious note, like, for these sort of left-wing economic types to be going in the lion's den on channels like GB News, where it's literally 1 on 3, it takes some balls. I'll tell you that. It takes some serious balls.
Roughly pitched at? Because this is about coming after assets, isn't it, rather than necessarily earned income?
That's right. And it's certainly true that wealth has become substantially more unequal in this country, and it's much more unequally distributed than income.
100%. The rich are earning more and more and more and more, and that is pushing asset prices up through the roof. And that is meaning that poorer and middle class and working class people in this country are not able to, for example, buy houses because the house prices are going up and up and up because they're tailoring towards a more wealthy market. The cost of living crisis is going up and up and up and up because the very wealthy are getting more and more of a monopoly on food distribution, etc., because they're able to buy up all these companies and industries where they can basically set their own prices. There are some nice rich people out there that are doing some really good things, but unfortunately, power leads to corruption, and they just want to get wealthier and wealthier, and the more and more money that's going into their pocket, the more and more money that's centralized, that is causing a lot of the economic ails the working, middle and lower classes have today.
We actually tax middle to upper middle income earners, and indeed upper income earners relatively highly in this country. We don't tax.
Not to mention that a billionaire's cleaner is probably paying a higher tax rate than the billionaire.
Very much people with very high levels of income who don't take that income as earnings and hence don't pay an income tax on it, or people with very high levels of tax on wealth. So, for example, the owner of GB News, Paul Marshall.
Absolutely cold. Jonathan to be coming on GB News and calling out the owner of GB News like this. This is outrageous. Watch this.
Who's on the Sunday Times rich list with a wealth of about £900 million. That's about 10,000 times the average wealth of the individual Brit. Probably pays a significantly lower average rate on their income than somebody like me, who's a sort of upper income earner level, because most of my income comes in earnings. Now, I personally don't object to paying relatively high levels of tax. I think actually that's quite reasonable. I probably should pay a bit more, but certainly people like your owner could afford to pay substantially more.
We don't know, because we don't know what he pays, actually, Jonathan, of course.
We don't know what he pays.
Well, we know, but we know.
That's true, but we know what the average billionaire pays. So, come on.
We know how hedge fund people who run hedge funds get most of the money out of the hedge funds. It's not through straightforward income. And
do you know what it is through, Jonathan? Do you know what it is through? It's through risk. It is through pressure. It is working hard.
Not to mention all of the government benefits you get when you start a business, your massive tax-free account, your ability to use government funds to be able to build your business early on. So when people get very rich, they seem to forget about these benefits they were given by the government early on so that they could get so rich. And in my opinion, the government should then be able to get this return on investment and be able to tax you at a fair fucking rate, once you become big. They should be able to get that return on investment. Come on, man. Not to mention corporation tax being lower, capital gains tax being lower than income tax, dividend tax being lower than income tax. You get all these benefits from the government, and now we're trying to say that once you get wealthy, it's all you, it's all your risk, it's all your thing. The government placed some risk on you as well, because you were paying less tax for a long time than the average worker would have been because of all your tax benefits you were getting. Come on.
It is leveraging often at the start of their careers.
It is indeed
their houses, their businesses, and surely those people who...
Yeah, it's exactly. It's for leveraging. Once you get to a certain level of wealth, you don't even need money. You don't even actually need to be taking a salary. You can just keep leveraging your business for more and more money in your pocket. You can get an infinite money tree once you're rich enough. We know that's true.
Who work that hard and create great channels like GB News.
Yeah, exactly. They create great things. I mean, I'm not really sure how great GB News is, but let's say it's successful, right? It's got 1.98 million subscribers on YouTube. That's pretty impressive for a news organization, right? They're creating these great things with the support from the government, with all the tax breaks you get as a business owner. So we're saying once you've got over 10 million in wealth, which is an amount of money that most people couldn't even dream of even earning in their lifetime, never mind it's having in a single amount of time, right? We're saying, then after that, on the wealth that you have over that, you should pay 2% extra on it because of the investment that the government put into you. I don't think that should be a controversial topic. That's fair. You know? I have to pay tax every month. I have to pay the exact amount, and often they tax me more than I should have been taxed, right? Do you know what I mean? And these people they got this big tax graph, right, which very clearly shows that they don't pay as much tax as a upper middle earner, right? And now they're moaning that we want them to pay a little bit more. Come on, you've had it good. These rich people have had it good for decades, and now and they're fighting against us raising taxes a little bit more on them. Lord Kinnock and Jonathan got it right.
Should be rewarded for that effort. Reem, come on in.
Well, this is the point, right? If we were to implement some kind
crash out warning, I think I'm going to lose my head with this lady, because honestly, I think I've watched this before and I think I lost my head with her on my own, never mind on video.
kind of wealth tax, then wonderful people like Paul Marshall that invest their money into British businesses would no longer have any incentive to do so.
False. Capital gains tax, corporation tax, dividend tax, it's all significantly lower than income tax, and your total amount of tax you pay would still be incredibly lower, right, than if you were paying income tax. If working people don't leave this country on the massive amount of taxes that they get paid, right, en masse, then why would rich people? In America, in Los Angeles, they've raised effectively they increased the income tax for incredibly high earners. Basically, kind of a wealth tax in a roundabout sort of way. This is America. So this is Los Angeles, where the states obviously raise their own taxes, right? They had an increase of I think it was just 1%, or I can't remember exactly. Don't quote me on that. I think it was an increase of a very small amount anyway. Increase of people actually coming out of the country, and they or the state, sorry, and they then raised a significant amount of revenue from that new tax, right? So in the USA, where it's easier to move from one state to another state than in the UK, moving from one country to a totally different country, and their like millionaires leaving rate only increased by a little bit, and they actually raised significant revenue, why would they leave? Come on, so that's that. Secondly, if an incredibly wealthy person wants to raise significant capital, right, then they want to do it in a country like the UK, right, where we have a free healthcare system, an incredible education system, we have law and order, a good court system, a relatively good police service, right? You know, relative to the rest of the world. I'm not saying it's perfect. We've got ways that we can make all these significantly better, but this is where we're at. Then if we increase the taxes a little bit, what do you think they're going to do? Go to Zimbabwe, South Africa, Nigeria? They're not going to do that, are they? Because the way in which they make their money is in the UK, right? If someone's a corporate landlord per se, right? Let's say they have 200 houses that they rent out, right? If they move to another country, right? They can't take those 200 houses with them. We talk about this like it's like that, like they can just take their assets or take their companies. Their company cannot be lifted from the ground or via crane and dropped in the middle of the Saharan desert, right? Or in the middle of Siberia or Wuhan, right? Like, they can't do that. You can't just pick up those 200 houses. So, if a rich person leaves, right, they're still going to get taxed either way, right? Because they own all that capital, right? Or, right, they sell up, right? So, they either sell these 200 properties or this massive business to another rich person willing to pay said tax, right? Or so many of them want to leave that the price goes down and down and down and down and down and down, or no one wants to pay for it, so they have to keep dropping the price until middle class people are able to afford these houses. And then we've fixed the problem. 200 more families are able to mortgage their own house because the price has gone down to a more reasonable level. And that's just, come on. That's how it works. Like, we cannot just assume, right, that, oh, right, you're going to raise taxes a little tiny bit and now all the billionaires and millionaires are going to leave, right? It's like that billionaire that left London and his house was like something like 250 million pounds. His house cost. Like, first of all, that's mad. How are you dealing with so many bedrooms? Do you know what I mean? How are you dealing with so many bedrooms? I hope they're not all en suite, because that would be a very costly cleaning process. Do you know what I mean? I'd have to have like 50 cleaners. Seriously, like I'd be like, look, I'm gonna have to give you all 8 weeks annual leave because doing this house is mad. Anyway, he's gonna have to sell his house, right? So he leaves his house. Yeah, he's still got to pay council tax and whatever, right? If he leaves, if we raise the wealth tax, we can still tax him on that wealth. That's 250 million. Let's assume that he's got at very least 10 million on top of that. 250. So 10% of that would be 25. So we're talking 5 million pounds a year on that house alone that we could tax him on. And you're trying to tell me that someone with a 250 million pound house can't afford that? Come on, you're having me on. Right, let's carry on before I crash out anymore.
The thing that really irks me about this particular argument is it assumes that people do not change their behaviour as taxes change.
No, we know people change their behaviour, but it's not as significant as you're about to try and suggest it is.
If we are to implement a wealth tax, people are always saying, Lord Kinnock was saying, it could raise up to £10 billion. That's...
Actually, the most common thing for a wealth tax, is proposal of an annual wealth tax 2% on wealth over 10 million that could raise 24 billion a year. Now that actually incorporates what you're talking about, where you're saying that the very wealthy will leave. I believe the thing is I think it's 7 to 14% or something, which is like an incredibly high estimate. But they said that on the basis of the people saying this, making this argument all the time. Like they're saying that 7 to 14% of these 20,000 people could leave the UK, but we would still raise a minimum of 24 billion per every year. 24 billion is enough to close the mythical black hole. Now, I would go further. I would bring in a land value tax and replace that with council tax and raise money that way as well. I would raise capital gains tax a little bit. I would raise corporation tax a little bit. I would want to be raising 60 or so billion pounds a year. I'd be filling that black hole. I'd be using 20 billion to reduce the national debt, and I'd use the other 20 billion to really rapidly build a council housing program that would massively improve people's lives in this country and create lots of jobs, and then increase the tax revenue that way, right? We would that's what I would do. Maybe I'm being too simplistic about it, but me in my in my working class mind thinks that radical solutions are required for radical problems, right? Do you know what I mean? And then the other ways that we raise revenue can then be focused more on, the health service, the education, care homes, disability support, and things like that, and making sure our police service runs effectively, and making sure our prison service runs effectively. Do you know what I mean? That's what we need to be doing. The rich will just leave. Let's just read a bit of this. These are numerous reports flying around, sensationalised by the media, based upon junk numbers and dodgy methodology. Yeah, so they did this study on Indeed? No, LinkedIn, where they use LinkedIn profiles on where people were at the time, from just before the non-dom tax status changed and just after the non-dom tax status changed, and lots of people basically, I don't know, probably went on holiday in that time, and then they tried to say that 10,000 millionaires have left the country or something. It's absolutely insane. It's the craziest thing I'd ever seen, right? Honestly, I couldn't believe it. And the 24 billion predicted income of our wealth tax proposal has already taken into account the predictable behavioural response of wealthy people. That's what I said. Found that just 0.01% of the richest households relocated after wealth tax reform were introduced in Norway, Sweden, and Denmark. Exactly. Do you know what I mean? We're talking about a tiny proportion of people. We're talking about 100 people. We're not talking about 20,000. Do you know what I mean? Irrigation would be more than. Right, yeah. So the tax academics at Van and Summers have estimated that the migration response would have to be more than 15 times larger than that for there to be a cost of the economy. So we're saying that it's 0.01. That's what we've seen in other countries, right? And they're saying that it would have to be 15 times larger than that for you to have any real economic cost to bringing in a wealth tax. Not to mention that even if you did have some economic cost to a wealth tax, right? The primary purpose of the wealth tax is not to bring in extra revenue. The primary purpose of the wealth tax is to reduce wealth inequality in the country, which will then benefit the 99% of people that don't come in the top 1%. The vast majority of the proletariat. The majority want to remain in their homes, and revenue could be raised by a wealth tax would far outweigh the money that would be lost from a small number of people leaving, in addition to exit tax. Yeah, so you could bring in exit taxes. I don't know how that really works, to be fair. It wouldn't work in practice because it's so hard to value assets. Oh, come on. Grow up. Right? We shouldn't do something that is necessary because it is hard. That is the stupidest thing I've ever heard. If we don't do things that are necessary because they're hard, then we're weak-minded, and you don't deserve to run the country if that's how you see things. Wealth tax haven't worked elsewhere. We know that's not true. Switzerland, Norway, Spain, France did it as well, but that got taken out by Macron. People shouldn't have to pay tax twice. What do you mean? I get income tax, I get national insurance, I get council tax, I pay VAT, I will pay stamp duty when I buy a house. Do you know what I mean? We're always getting double taxed. What do you mean? Right? How can you say that? It's the silliest thing I've ever seen. It's a stupid myth. The wealthy would just dodge the tax again if we do not do things that are necessary because they are hard, then we're weak-minded. Right? Right, okay, let's carry on with this. I think they have a big row, you know. It's going to be really funny.
None of these people leave. We already have a millionaire leave the United Kingdom every 45 minutes.
It's just so...
Hello, I'm Bev Turner. Now, it can be... You had me at not...
It's just so ludicrous. We have a millionaire leaving this country every 45 minutes. What? On holiday? To Spain? To Greece? To the US? On holiday? Come on. Having me on. Anyway, this whole ad is about, like, getting a bank account which uses gold. Which, by the way, actually, I had a look here, right? Ad disclaimer: the purchase of the golden investment in bullion is not FCA regulated, nor do they benefit from the protections of the Financial Services Compensation Scheme or the Financial Ombudsman Service. The value of your investment can go down as well, obviously. Consider risks involved before choosing to invest. The card is issued by Transact Payments Limited, pursuant to a license by MasterCard International Incorporated. So this is a thing where basically you can pay money by using tiny amounts of gold. Basically, all your money can go into an account, and it's basically gold, not money, right? Which isn't a terrible idea. Like, gold holds its value really well, right? But on a serious note, right? They're encouraging people to do this, and it's not FCA regulated, nor do they benefit from the protections of the Financial Services Compensation Scheme. That's absolutely, that, in my opinion, to be telling British people to get on a card that they wouldn't get because it's got no protections. Like, what if we had another 2008? Right? This is the type of thing that's going to cause another 2008 financial crisis. Non-FCA regulated companies that are trying to sell you a solution that it just ain't going to happen. Right. Anyway, tally money. That's, forgive me, but it's just, that's not for me. That not for me at all. Right. Here we go.
We know that there are about 16,000 millionaires estimated to leave the UK in 2025. What do we really...
From what? From what? Like, that's the silliest thing I've ever seen. 16,000 millionaires. What does that mean? What are you considering a millionaire as well? There's multiple issues there.
What do you really think is going to happen if we implement a wealth tax? Now, in the 1990s, there were about 12 countries that had wealth taxes. Now there are only 3. Why have these countries...
Well, I'm just saying, like, fair argument, you know what I mean? Maybe they don't always work. What we could say is, instead of them maybe not working, maybe the vested interests in the wealthy who pay their significant amounts of money to governments persuaded governments to remove them. I'm just suggesting that maybe the very issue in our society where the super wealthy are able to control us through their newspapers, their media, their doning to political parties, it could be a possibility, right, that they funded these governments out of taxing them a fair amount. Also, even if they were poorly organised taxes, right? Even if they were poorly organised taxes and they weren't great, and they should have been better, more effectively sort of put in. Oh, pardon me. All right, let's say they should have been more effectively put in, and they were poor wealth tax options, right? Let's say that. Well, we can learn from their mistakes. Do you know what I mean? Like, a wealth tax, it's not like one specific thing. Like, we can learn from the mistakes that they made. Okay.
Repealed their wealth taxes because they've seen an exodus of incredible people leave...
That's not necessarily true. She's stretching that there. Where's the proof?
...their country, and they don't want that to happen.
Jonathan, surely respond to that point. Why would we, when other countries have realised they've ditched this policy, it doesn't work?
Wait a minute. I mean, there are many different types of wealth tax. Some of them work better than others, and there's certainly implementation difficulties. And so,
exactly what I was just saying.
For example, some of the changes made to the non-dom regime by first Jeremy Hunt and then Rachel Reeves probably were ill-judged and may lead to some people leaving the country. On the other hand, we also know that some don't. And the vast majority of people will not leave the country. The 16,000 figure, for example, that Reem's quoted is simply an invented one.
Exactly. It's from the LinkedIn profile thing. It's invented. There's no basis to that.
Invented by a wealth management firm. It has actual no basis in reality or research. So we should.
But we've already seen lots of millionaires leave.
Oh, so
What, based on that, which is just debunked?
okay, we've gone down from 16,000 to lots. That's better, at least.
16,000 in. Jonathan, is 16,000 was estimated in 2025.
Estimated,
what I am saying is if you don't want to use the estimated figure, we can say up until now, we're currently in July, we've already had a huge number of millionaires leave, one every 45 minutes. If you don't want to use the...
That's based on the 16,000 figure. So if you're saying that the 16,000 figure is now lots, then you cannot base it on that. That doesn't make sense. It doesn't make sense at all.
estimated figure, that's fine, but you cannot deny that many millionaires have left the UK.
I think we can say that the 45-minute claim has exactly the same basis as Tony Blair's claim about Saddam Hussein's chemical
Oh my God, Jonathan, throwing down facts.
weapons. So let's
Well,
leave.
we'll see.
let's leave-
We will start
let
to
us-
see it, Jonathan.
let us
We'll
leave
see it in the text
scaremongering
tape.
aside. And so for example, do we think that Paul Marshall, your owner, who, as I said, is
You're obsessed by him.
so do you think that he would leave the country?
Oh my God, he's rattling. He's rattling the board. Is that his name, Andrew Pierce? He's rattling him, mate. He's getting rattled.
You think has so little attachment to this country and to
Jonathan,
its
I don't know why you want to make
culture
it personal,
that he
but
would leave
this is the fundamental...
Wait, can I?
It is personal. Paul Marshall created a channel purposely to attack immigrants, purposely to attack the left, purposely to attack basically these proposals to make poor and working and middle class people's lives better. He made it on that basis, and that's why they do it every single day. So yeah, it is personal. He made it personal when he started trying to fund money into persuading people to make their lives worse.
Can I speak for a minute?
Well, you have gone on about Paul Marshall a lot, and he's not here to
No, he hasn't. He's literally spent probably a minute to talking about it. It's not really a lot, is it?
speak for himself.
Well, wait a minute. No, he's bought this entire channel so that he can speak for himself and speak supposedly on behalf.
That's just
of
fundamentally
people.
untrue.
No, wait.
What? How is it fundamentally untrue? How could it possibly be fundamentally untrue? Why would one make a TV channel if it who's incredibly wealthy, if it wasn't to put forward an argument in which you support? You wouldn't stand for necessarily your main arguments to be something that you don't agree with. That wouldn't make any sense. I'm not saying it's necessarily evil. I'm just saying that you wouldn't make a channel on that basis. That's why he's made it conservative, because he's obviously has small c conservative views, right?
Wait, let me finish. So the question is, Paul Marshall, the sort of tax on wealth that has been talked about is in the region of 1 or 2%. So do we think if Paul Marshall, who's worth 900 million according to the Sunday Times, had to pay 1 or 2% of that a year, do you think that his attachment to this country and to its values and culture...
Bearing in mind, he probably makes a minimum, a conservative estimate of 4 to 5% a year on all of his wealth, right? So what we're saying is, instead of his wealth of 900 million raising by, let's say, 30 or so million pounds a year, his wealth will raise by 10 to 15 million pounds a year. Conservatively, that's if he's making 4 to 5% a year. It could be a lot more, I don't know, but let's assume that it's 4 to 5%, right? So, sorry, but I don't think that's that bad of a deal. You get to support your country, you get to provide your country with the necessary funding to be able to rebuild its education programs, rebuild its healthcare, rebuild its police force and prison service, support its fire service, be able to provide support to those significantly worse off than you, that haven't had the same support from the government that you've had, right? You get to be patriotic. You get to pay that money into the system to be able to support the country that has grown up that you live in, you can be proud of yourself. Oh no, but Paul Marshall doesn't want that. Paul Marshall wants to make wealth taxes seem like completely disastrous. That's what Paul Marshall wants.
Let me ask one quick
so
question.
minimal
Jonathan,
that
Kicking off.
Let me ask one quick question. Jonathan,
It's kicking off.
do you think you should, Jonathan,
Do you think that's
do you
going
think
down?
you should pay more tax?
Yeah, he's already said that. He's literally already said he'd be happy to pay a bit more tax.
Yes, I've said that many times. I
You
have
should
no
pay
problem,
more tax.
I have no problem saying that I should pay more tax, and I have no problem saying that if I had to pay 1 or 2% tax on my wealth, or 1 or 2% tax more on my income,
I'll tell you what, I don't really want to pay more tax. I don't want to, right? If they said I had to, I won't be out in the streets kicking off because, you know, I would understand, right? But I'd be kicking off if they said, look, we're going to introduce this wealth tax, but we're going to increase income tax at the 20% threshold by like 1% or something, right? If they said that, I'd say, you know what, we're in a difficult position in this country, and everyone's got to pay a little bit to get us out of it, right? I could understand that. I could understand it, right? But if they said that they were going to be raising my taxes, and then they weren't going to be introducing anything that was going to increase the taxes of the super wealthy, I'm at the point where I'd be like, I'm going in the streets. Do you know what I mean? I've had enough, right? I genuinely want us to have a fairer tax system in this country, and if it meant that I had to pay a little bit more as well, I'd be okay with that.
every year to fund decent quality public services, that I would not leave the country. I would continue working.
Can I just
100%. Like, people don't recognise that. Like, if you pay a little bit more tax, and you've got a competent government, it means that your education system gets better, your healthcare system gets better. We're at the point now where we need to improve them drastically. We don't need to just keep our healthcare system, education system ticking along. They're not in a good spot. Right, the prison system is not in a good spot. We need more prisons. The police system is not in a good spot. We don't have very good officers. We need better training. We need better support. We need people to feel safe in challenging violent crime. Right? We need a significant cash injection to solve this problem. Right? We need it desperately. We also, right, you know the DOGE thing in America, the Department of Government Efficiency. Now, I don't think it should be set out in that way, in which basically it's just to reduce the amount of money spending out of the coffers. Like, that would inevitably lead to worse outcomes for people. But we need a system that effectively stops companies and rich people from rinsing the government of everything they have and treating it like an endless money tree. Do you know what I mean? Like, HS2, for example, billions and billions and billions of pounds over budget. They shouldn't be allowed to say this is going to cost this much and then it doesn't cost that much. It costs literally 2 to 3 times as much. If something costs 10% more than quoted, do you know what I mean? I'd be like, you know what, fair enough, things don't... But how can you possibly be 200% over budget? How can you possibly be 200% over budget? It doesn't make sense. We need a government department which effectively stops things like rich companies and rich people from rinsing our government of everything they have, because they do that too. Well, it's a bit off topic, but you know.
to add very quickly.
Now, I agree.
We
that,
can't,
I
Reem, I'm
agree
so
that some
sorry.
people-
Listen, we'll
It's
have you
kicking
back
off.
again. It's a
Not
really...
particularly.
Go on,
We'll have you
Jonathan.
back again. It's a really
Go on,
interesting
Jonathan.
conversation, and no doubt this
Go
is
on,
a
John.
topic that is not going
Go
anywhere.
on, John.
Go anywhere.
Can I
You're
just
a
say,
with
there's
us.
so many times
You
we've
can't. We
discussed
got to
this,
go.
you don't even know
We
if
got
that's
to go.
Go on, John. Okay. Right, so let me see what else is on tax justice. Look, UK quick. We've got a few minutes. Take action. What's on the take action bit? Tax extreme wealth. I believe I signed that. No tax breaks for tech giants. Facts. Why should you have a tax break? Why? Make Amazon pay their tax. Amazon should be paying their tax. Do you know what I mean? It's insane. Let's see. What does this actually say? Amazon's main UK division paid no corporation tax in the UK in recent years. What the hell? They're benefiting from tax breaks. I don't benefit from a tax break. during the cost of living crisis when that money could fund vital public services like facts, right? The scale of this is huge. In 2022, Amazon UK services made 222 million profit. Mad. Yeah, it paid no corporation tax in the UK. Wow. In fact, the government gave them 7.7 million in tax credits. They don't. Why did we give them 7.7 million when they made 222 to pay for their own fucking infrastructure? What the hell, right? The previous government then bought in permanent tax credits for these investments. Wow. Now that we have a new government, we have the opportunity to crack down on this avoidance. Yeah, man, that is terrible. That is god awful. I have to say, that is god awful. Exposed tax haven secrets. Absolutely, that's just god. That tax haven thing makes me sick. Honestly, like the fact that people end up paying next to nothing. Higher taxes on wealth and excessive corporate profits can tackle the crisis. Higher taxes on wealth and excessive corporation profits can tackle the crises the UK faces, from crumbling public services and surging inequality to the climate emergency. Working strategically. Our strategy is to build a strong UK tax justice system, influence the media conversation on tax and persuade politicians to back tax reform. You can read our full 2025 to 2027 strategy here. You can also view our 2022 to 2024 strategy and our initial strategy covering the 2019-2021 available here. Wow. You guys should come and check this out. There's some really interesting stuff on here. Let's see what's on the news. UK risks 5 billion digital services loss under Trump pressure. We should not be letting Trump control what we do, right? Just because he's a wet wipe that just wants to make the rich people richer doesn't mean we have to. Leading economists call for a wealth tax in the UK. Facts. Who's afraid of a wealth tax? This could be interesting. Lord Neil Kinnock. Right. Okay. Given this overwhelming support, whatever. Who's afraid of a wealth tax? Perhaps she's been listening to Edmund Shing, the Chief Investment Officer at BNP Paribas Wealth Management, who called the wealth tax a very dangerous road. Or maybe even Nigel Green, the CEO of the DV Group, who make their money helping wealthy expats move their money around the world to avoid taxes. Oh my God. He said even floating this idea is dangerous. It's literally floating. They make the wealthy expats move their money around the world, and he says it's floating. The idea is dangerous. That has to be a dad joke. I'm telling you right now. I don't think he said that like that. I think he said that like, even floating this idea is dangerous. It's got to be a dad joke. Both of these men have made their money advising the rich on how to get richer. Exactly. So how can we trust these people to say have a justifiable reason as to not want wealth taxes? Like, they obviously want it because it would affect their bottom line. Come on. But for context, in Europe, where lobbying registers are more transparent, we know that BNP Paribas spent 1.5 million euros this year lobbying in the EU Parliament. That shouldn't be allowed. You shouldn't be able to spend that kind of money lobbying. Like, I don't think it should be allowed. Oh, God. Right, this is that one that I was just on. Yeah, so this is a thing. I'm going to end the video here, but yeah, like, comment, subscribe. I might make another one today. I'm really on with this, like, riffing thing. Like, you know, I get to learn with you guys. It'll be really, like, I think it will benefit me in how I speak and how I explain my arguments. You know, when I listen to it back and I think, oh, I could have said that a little bit better. I could have said that a little bit better. Obviously, don't take everything I say overwhelmingly, like, seriously. Like, I'm bantering. I'm trying to make this a way where someone can, like, have fun maybe a little bit while watching these videos and kind of get an understanding without all the, you know, the technical jargon and stuff like that. Like, I don't really understand technical jargon. I understand the point and everything, but I think it's important for people to be able to understand this stuff without having to understand all the technical type stuff that, you know, like Gary talks about. Like, he I know he makes it quite accessible as well, but some people still can't understand that kind of thing. And, you know, I want to make this something people can just riff to and maybe just have on the background while they play some computer games or something. Do you know what I mean? Yep. All right, cool. Thank you very much. Like, comment, subscribe. Positive criticism in the comments, please. Thank you.